We're going to go ahead and take a look at your store real quick. Let me share my screen with you. So today we're taking a look at Alissa at Hinzspire for you. We're taking a look at her store, and we're just going to do a quick little audit. This isn't anything big. This isn't a deep dive audit or anything like that. We're talking to her on the podcast, and we're looking at her goals for 2024 and looking at ways that she can leverage her TPT store to help her meet those goals that she has. If you want to see the full interview and you want to listen in on that full conversation, you can find the link down in the description to check out the full video with Alissa as well. But let's take a look at your store. So I have to admit, this is like my comfort zone, like middle school math. Sometimes I look inside of somebody's store and I'm like, okay, not totally familiar with these keywords. I'm not all the way sure, what is normal for this particular niche or what's standard for this particular niche. But middle school math, I'm feeling really confident with. Like, I feel really good about this. So first glance at your store, you've obviously spent some time doing your branding. You have chosen your branding colors. When I sorted by best sellers at first, I was kind of like, a little inconsistent with the branding. Like, this obviously looks much different, like different branding colors than this, different branding templates, things like that. But when I sort by most recent and I take a look at what you've been doing recently, I can see that you've spent a lot of time really focusing on building some consistency with your branding, and it shows. I'm actually going to pick one particular resource. There was one particular resource in your store, or this new series, of these guided notes in practice that kind of stood out to me. And I'm going to pick these and I'm going to kind of look at them for a second, because I think overall the advice that I'm going to give you on these will probably help you with a lot of different items in your store. Because I think for some of your resources, not all of them, but I think for some of your resources, you're overpriced. So that can obviously be a really big deal in a typical economy, but in the economy that we're in right now, it's even more important that we're making sure that we're pricing our resources competitively, because teachers are being really picky and choosy with their dollars. So when I saw this at first, I was like, okay, $550, guided notes, teacher slides. I opened it up to just kind of look at it. And you have 2 pages. I think it said 2 pages of student notes. I saw it somewhere. 2 student note pages and 1 teacher Google slide lesson. So you have a Google slide lesson, which obviously is, important in terms of pricing. And then you've got 2 student pages. When I took a look at notes inside of your niche of like 6th, 7th grade math, I specifically first started with like similar topics. So like if I typed in area of parallelogram notes, like what's going to come up as being competitive with you, right? I've got $3 for 4 pages. I've got $3.50 for 2 different warm-ups, 2 different exit slips, an assessment, vocabulary practice, a practice page, and guided notes. So that includes quite a lot for $3.50. And then when I look at just notes that are just like 2 pages of notes, I'm seeing like $1.50, $2 range. And I actually looked at more generic as well, but I'm seeing like in the $1.50 to $2.50 range for 2 pages of student notes. So that's important to keep in mind when we're pricing this, because I wasn't finding a lot, and it kind of makes it difficult when you don't see something exactly like yours on the market to know like, okay, how do I price this appropriately? Because I wasn't finding anything that had the teacher slides and the notes. So if I go with that market value of like, I've got 2 student note pages, I'm pricing that at like, let's say $2.50, that would put your teacher slides at $3. And I'll be real honest with you, just looking at your thumbnails and your preview, I'm not going to say that it's not worth $3, but what I'm going to say is it's not conveying that it's worth $3. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So it could be that your slides are worth $3. Maybe if it was like, included practice problems, or there was some interactive element for the students to interact with the slides or something like that, then I could definitely see that kind of swaying and improving the price. But I think just based on what I'm seeing, I think you're overpriced and you might do better in the $4 to $4.50 range. And let me show you why.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If I go and I look at area of parallelograms, I've got 3, 350. I've got this 8. It's obviously a bundle. So 1, 150, 1, 250. And then all the way down here, I find yours. By the time I get to yours, everything above and below it, for the most part, with the exception of this one right here, which is 3 sets of notes, is significantly cheaper than your own. If I cannot convince them on the cover that there's a lot more in my resource than the competing products that are around me, it's going to be harder for me to get those clicks. So what I would say is probably knock it down, try $4.50 range. And I would also take a look at doing some things on your cover that would help convey that there's more to this than just notes and practice. Because right now we just have like notes and practice for our keywords. We don't have teacher slides, like we don't have anything like that. Mm-hmm. So it's not like anybody who's coming across this is specifically looking for teacher slides to accompany this. So we really need to make that stand out. But when I'm looking at this in search, I can't read anything on your cover. Now, granted, my vision is not that great. So maybe somebody could make out like finding the area of, I know it says that, so I can kind of make that out. But just in scrolling, sliding, like I can't read any of this. If I hover, I can read, which is great, but I have to be interested enough to hover in order to read it. So a couple of modifications that I would consider making, and I'm going to pull this up on the bigger screen here. I go to the actual product itself so that we can see it. A couple of things would be, I would actually take this black rectangle that you have, make it much, much thinner. And that's going to give you a little bit more room in that top part to make that font bigger. Another thing that I would consider doing would be getting rid of the scrolly font for like squares, rectangles, and parallelograms. And I would actually just use all one big, bold, chunky font for that. And then down here where you've got guided notes and teacher slides, resource to support students, I would take out for sure the resource to support students so that you could make this bigger. But I might even consider putting something like complete lesson and then make these little swoopies bigger, take out structured learning, put student notes, teacher slides, and try to see if you can't make those bigger, and then just put complete lesson right here. Those are a couple of things that I would consider doing to hopefully help emphasize the fact that there's more to your product than the competing products around it are offering, and justify that cost so that they're more inclined to click on it. And I think doing that for most of your resources is going to be really helpful. I picked that one in particular because it seemed like that was probably the direction that you were going. That was what you're currently working on. But when we're looking at covers, just finding a way to make that main text, those main keywords that buyers are typing into the search engine and hoping to find resources that align to, making sure that those keywords are really big and bold and visible. Another thing is finding ways to make them more visually interesting. So like for this particular activity, maybe showing some of the end result, like a screenshot of some of the end results, like even just you could put in fake numbers right here and just take a screenshot of the picture that starts to pop up or the picture that pops up so they can see how fun and engaging it is. Can go a long way towards like capturing that eye from TPT search. Otherwise, like all of your covers are beautiful. They look great. They're visually appealing. Just kind of making some of those smaller tweaks and changes and really taking a look at the competition in terms of pricing and making sure that if you are priced higher than the average resource on the market for that search term, then justifying that. So like, for example, if I go to do adding and subtracting additional numbers, digital. So I've got this one that's print and digital. That's probably not a good. Let's see. There's one. That one's $3. That's an escape room, so that's going to be a little bit more. This one's $3.75. This one's $3.25. That's task cards. That's a little different. $3.25. Just kind of looking where they're at, and then okay, there's yours at $4. So this one is at $4.50. So figuring out, okay, why is this one $4.50? Can I justify being $4 when most of them are in the 350 range, and just kind of taking a look and dialing that in. Just even small things like taking it down to $3.75 from $4 can sometimes really help give you that little bit of a competitive edge, because it just looks like it's not more expensive.